Hello and welcome to Veterans of the Valley. I'm Tom Turbeville. Pat Patterson served his country proudly as a United States Marine, ground artillery, Operation Desert Storm. We could do an entire show on his service back in those intense months of 1991, but that's not what he wants to talk about today. Pat Patterson still serves his country by helping fellow veterans every day as a counselor for the Texas Veterans Commission. You will be amazed to hear the benefits available to military veterans, benefits that many veterans are not even aware of. It's his job to make veterans aware. And as he'll tell us, it's not a handout, it's an investment for America. Welcome to Pat Patterson. Pat, welcome to you. I know that you don't want to spend a lot of time talking about your own service, but we are going to spend a few minutes. 1991, January of 1991, when Desert Shield became Desert Storm, you were a United States Marine. Talk a little bit about your service, of which you served 20 years, I know, in the Marine Corps. Talk about that time of your life.
That's correct. And thank you for having me on, inviting me onto the show. I joined the Marine Corps in '79, went to the rank of Staff Sergeant, did a couple of years as a drill instructor, and then changed over to the warrant officer ranks. Mm-hmm. And I was a warrant officer when we went to Desert Storm, Desert Shield. We landed in Saudi Arabia, in Al Jabal, and moved up. And actually, we crossed the border the day before the ground war started, and gave support to the infantry with our artillery the day of the ground war, and kept moving and moved fast.
Now, your primary job was artillery survey, sort of looking for positions, for gun positions, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct. Of course, the infantry's the foot soldier's going to be up front, and the artillery's in support of them. Well, I'm sort of behind the infantry, but in front of the artillery, so when they move up, they have a position where they can move into and keep moving. And that was a very fast ground war, so we were moving real quickly. And sometimes the infantry got everybody that they needed to, and sometimes they bypassed a few of them, but that was okay. It was all taken care of.
And part of your job is what was called NBC, Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Warfare Officer. That was an intense part of what you did, obviously.
That's correct. You got to remember, back in that time frame, we still thought that they had weapons of mass destruction and they were going to use them. So we were all very nervous about that. So when we crossed the border and we started moving, we were in what we call MOP level, Mission-Oriented Protective Posture. We had our chemical suits on, our gloves, our boots. We had our mask at the ready, and it was a little tense there, wondering if we were going to get gassed or not.
Someday I want to come bring you back on and spend 30 minutes talking about your service, but I know that that's not what you want to do today. You want to talk about the great service provided by the Texas Veterans Commission and how you're involved in that too. So let's get on to it. And I want to tell folks that the information that you're about to get is very, very important, especially if you are a veteran, if you're related to a veteran, or if you know a veteran. Listen up, because some of this information is really invaluable. Talk about the Veterans Commission, sort of its history and sort of its mission.
Thanks, Tom. The Texas Veterans Commission was established by the Texas legislature. It is a state organization. I am a state employee. It was established back in 1927, and the whole purpose of establishing the Texas Veterans Commission is to be the advocate for the veteran, mm-hmm. to ensure that the veteran, his spouse, his dependent, or even the surviving spouse get the benefits that they rate and have well deserved.
Right. And sort of how it all started. Obviously, it started because there was a need, because veterans just were not getting these benefits. Is that right?
Oh, yes, sir, most definitely. The VA, the Veterans Administration, which I deal with on a daily basis, it is a very complex federal government organization. And I would like to say here, the VA is helpful. They will answer whatever question that you have, whatever information that you need to know. They will let you know that information. The problem that most veterans have is they don't know the question to ask. They don't know what information they're seeking, and you call up to the VA and they just don't have the time to sit there and go through all of this. They've got another 100 people waiting on hold to talk to them, and they don't have the time to sit down, listen to what's going on, get all of the facts, and then tell you what benefits you rate or which ones you're eligible for. And that's what we do, is we have the time to sit down, do a one-on-one with veterans, and have the time to look at their DD-214 to find out what they did and what benefits that they're entitled to.
I know one thing you were telling me when we were talking earlier was that you personally don't know all the answers, but what you do know is you do know the people who do know the answers. There's a network there, so you're the person that a veteran can come to. If you can't give them the answer, you can tell them who has it.
That's correct. And I use that term as people who provide benefits to the veterans. We have made a network amongst ourselves. For example, the main things that we do in the Texas Veterans Commission is compensation and pension. And I'd like to come back to that. But if you came into my office and you were an unemployed veteran and you said, Pat, I'm an unemployed veteran, I just need help getting a job. Well, that's not my area of expertise. However, I do know the man who works over at the Texas Workforce Commission, and that is his primary job, to make sure that veterans and disabled veterans can gain employment. The same thing with housing. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to get an improvement on your house, or you wanted to buy a house or land, that's not my area of expertise, but I do know a personal contact who works down at the Texas Veterans Land Board. We work very closely together, and what they have done in turn, if they have a veteran that comes in seeking compensation and pension, they just send them to me. So we've made a network amongst ourselves where if we're not the expert in that particular topic, we can point you to the expert, and we always tell them, if that person doesn't answer your question, come back and see me. And that's sort of our guarantee that we're just not sending them on a wild goose chase.
Okay, let's talk more specifically about the compensation and pension part of the benefits.
Thank you, sir. That's exactly what we do. We primarily do compensation and pension. Now, compensation is monies or treatment for injuries that were either incurred or exaggerated while they were on active duty. Okay, and this can be monies and just as importantly, treatment for those type of conditions. The pension side of it is monies that are paid to a low-income wartime veteran who is either disabled or over the age of 65. Now, let me expand a little bit on what a wartime veteran is. A wartime veteran is a veteran who served during a time of war. It is not necessarily a combat veteran. You may have never have left the United States, but you'll still be a wartime veteran because you served during a time of war. Now, what Congress has said is for our wartime veterans that are either disabled or they are over 65, if they're low income, if their income is below a certain threshold, then we, being the Veterans Administration, will pay them a pension to get them up to that certain threshold. Now, I would grant you that I wish they would make the threshold a little bit higher, but it's not as high as I'd like it to be, but it's out there, and for our low-income wartime veterans, it's something they need to check into, because also what's taken off of their total income is any unreimbursed medical expenses that they have. Mm-hmm. So that's taken off their income to see if they're below that, to make sure to see if they're eligible for a pension.
Right. More on medical benefits.
Yes, sir. The medical benefits, again, that's not my area of expertise. I know just enough to be dangerous. There are the medical side. A lot of people don't even realize that we have a VA clinic here in College Station. But we do have a superb VA clinic here in College Station. And the way that the VA medical works is there's priority groups. There's 8 different priority groups, and you've got to prioritize. There are so many veterans. You got to prioritize how you're going to see these veterans, and also how they're going to pay for it. Okay, priority group 8 is mainly based on your income. If you have a high income, then they may charge you full price for your medication and for your doctor's visits. If you have a low income, then they may just request a small copay for your medications and your doctor's visits. The other 7 priority groups have nothing to do with your income. What they have to do with is if you are service connected or not, and what percentage you are service-connected. We're talking service-connected disabilities. So if I had a veteran who came in and say he lost hearing or had tinnitus, the ringing in the ear, and that was from his service, and we got him service-connected at 0%. Okay, he's going to think, well, it's service-connected, but it's 0%, so it's no benefits to it. Well, that's wrong. Because he is service-connected, even at 0%, he is put in a higher priority group where he would only have to pay a copay for his medications and his doctor's visits. Additionally, because it is a service-connected disability, any treatment that he would need for that would be paid for by the VA. And if you've priced hearing aids lately, they're around $4,000 or $5,000 nowadays, so they're sort of expensive. But those would be paid for by the VA. There are, on the medical side, there is a couple of special ones that I'd like to talk about, and that are these registries that we have.
Right.
The VA has medical registries. Now, what a registry is, it is a medical examination for special groups of individuals, for special groups of veterans. There are 4 of these VA registries. There's the ionized radiation registry. Now, this is mainly for the veterans who participated in the nuclear testing here in the United States, or who were required to walk through Hiroshima and Nagasaki after the bomb was dropped over there. They were exposed to radiation, so any disabilities that they have from that. There's the depleted uranium registry. Now, that's mainly for those who were either in Afghanistan or in Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, where some of the munitions that were used over there had uranium in it, if they were exposed to that. There's the Gulf War registry, and that's for those of us who was in the Gulf War, and it's really undiagnosed illnesses. They really haven't figured out some of the illnesses that people have come back with. The one that is used probably the most is the Agent Orange registry.
Right.
Now, the Agent Orange registry is for veterans who served in Vietnam, in country in Vietnam. The VA has stated if you were in country in Vietnam, you were exposed to Agent Orange. It doesn't matter where you were. You don't have to say I was here or there, just that you were in country. And if you were exposed to Agent Orange, there are 11 diseases that the VA has said that they directly relate back to Agent Orange.
And I know a lot of those diseases are cancer-type diseases, whether they're skin cancers or other kinds of cancers. But one of those illnesses is diabetes, and that's one that you want to particularly talk about.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're right. A lot of them are the skin cancers, Hodgkin's disease, lymphomas, even prostate cancer. But the one that is most prevalent is diabetes. And diabetes is a vicious disease because not only it affects it affects a lot of other organs. It has secondary conditions. For example, the individual may have peripheral neuropathy, and what that is either in the arms or the legs a burning sensation. Those appendages go to sleep. Lack of circulation. It's a neurological, but it's a secondary condition from the diabetes. They also may have frequent urination, erectile dysfunction, problems with their vision. All of those are secondary conditions of the diabetes. Now remember, if the person was on Vietnam and they were exposed to Agent Orange and the VA connects the diabetes to the exposure to Agent Orange, then all of the secondary conditions that the individual has, those that I just mentioned, are also service-connected. And so those also can be compensated by the VA. A real important one. Yes, sir.
And the government considers that if, as you told me, if you had boots on the ground in Vietnam, then you were exposed to Agent Orange.
If you were aboard a ship and the ship stayed off the coast, but then one time it came into port, you jumped off the ship, you ran up there and you grabbed a beer and you ran back onto the ship, and you can prove you had boots on the ground grabbing that beer at that bar, then you were exposed to Agent Orange. Yes, sir.
pretty amazing information that people really, really need to know. We're going to get back to the medical in a little bit, but I want to move on to education because I think this is just fascinating. Some of the things you told me is what I referred to earlier as an investment in America. Tell the folks what you told me about education and the benefits.
I am the prime example of, I think, the best education program that the VA has. I dropped out of school in the 9th grade to join the Marine Corps. When I retired, I came back here to Bryan College Station, and I was looking for a job and found out that there's not a big demand for artillery officers around the Brazos Valley. And the VA recognized that also. And so what they did was they sent me to school under a program called the Vocational Rehabilitation Program. The VA paid for my tuition, they paid for my books, they paid for my pens, pencils, and paper, and gave me a tax-free living allowance on top of that. Now, you may say, wow, that's a big gimme. However, they've done research and studies, and when I went, and this was only a few years ago, I graduated in '04, the statistics was 7 for 1. For every $1 the federal government invests in a veteran for education, the federal government gets $7 in return by taxes. So I could have got out of the Marine Corps and I've been a night watchman. I could have been a great janitor, making minimum wage or maybe a little bit above that, and I would have been paying federal taxes on those dollars. However, they sent me to school. They got me I helped a little bit getting an education. They paid for it, and now I'm making a little bit more money and paying more in taxes. So it's a 7-for-1 benefit for the government. It is an investment and it's a win-win situation. Now this is a great program for those young vets that we have coming back from Iraq. And you have to have 3 requirements to be eligible for this. You have to have an honorable discharge. You have to have a disability rating of 20% or more. And you have to have an employment handicap. And it's an easy, I'm not saying it's an easy program to get accepted for, but the VA really is pushing this program. And so is the federal government. It's a win-win situation for everybody. And a lot of these young vets coming back from Iraq that don't decide not to make the military a career, this is a perfect one for them. Now there are other education programs out there. Again, I'm not the expert at the education program. That was near and dear to my heart. Because that's how I'm here today. But I do know the expert in the education program. If they just come up to my office, I'd be more than happy to point them in the right direction.
Right. Well, as you and I were discussing the other day on this education thing, sure, a man or a woman can come back, say, from Iraq or wherever they served, and they could go for the minimum wage job if they wanted to, if that's the route that they wanted to go to. But the government is saying, hey, we want to give back to you for your service. We want to give you an education. And that's sort of a mutual back scratch there because, like you said, that person goes through college. Instead of making $6 or $7 an hour, that person may be making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year that they're paying taxes on, which benefits the government. Plus, another thing that we brought up was that that person that's making $50,000 or $60,000 a year because they've been through college, they've got more buying power out there. They're paying sales tax every time they buy those expensive cars rather than the cheaper cars, and that's helping the state that they live in, especially the state of Texas. So you're right, it's a win-win deal, isn't it?
Yes, sir, most definitely. And yeah, they're actually paying my salary as an employee of the state. That's what they're doing, and it is a mutual beneficial proposition. Yes, sir.
Pat, I know that another thing you want to talk about, we're going to get back to sort of the medical end, and it's PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
I do not know if you saw the news 2 weeks ago, Friday 2 weeks ago, and I came bouncing out of my office to watch it on TV. A veteran got back from Iraq. He got out of the service. He put in for PTSD. He made a claim through the VA for PTSD. They denied his claim, and about 30 days later, he took his own life. And it really, really upset me because I know that the only reason he was denied his claim was probably because he did not give them all the information that they needed for that claim. That's why I want so strongly for people, if they have a problem, to come see me about it. Post-traumatic stress disorder, the PTSD, it is a recognizable, compensatable ailment, disability that the VA has said, yes, we do agree with that. Now, there are some criteria for it, and there has to be. You just have to be able to prove it some way. There's 3 elements. Number 1 is you have to have a traumatic event that happened to you while you were on active duty. The second element is you have to have a diagnosis from a psychiatrist or a psychologist that you have post-traumatic stress disorder. And the third thing is that psychiatrist or psychologist has to make a lexis, a connection between the PTSD that you currently suffer and that event that happened while you were on active duty. Now, this is primarily for combat. It primarily is for combat. However, it's not exclusively for combat. I've put in a couple of claims for, actually there were 2 sailors, different times, that were not in combat. One sailor was aboard a ship in Norfolk. The ship caught on fire. He was caught below the fire. It was very traumatic for him, and he still has dreams and nightmares of being trapped below this fire. The other one was on a submarine. It did an emergency blow or an emergency dive. He was in the engine room. A piece of metal, huge piece of metal, came flying across the room and killed his friend. Again, right in front of him, a traumatic event. Those things are documented, even if it wasn't combat. That is a documented event that we can establish the stressor, as it's called. If you're in combat in the Marine Corps, because I was in combat, for example, we got our combat action ribbon. In the Army, if you're in the infantry and you're in combat, you get the Army Infantryman badge. If you're not in infantry in the Army and you're in combat, you don't have a similar device that shows that. Neither does the Navy or the Air Force. And those, the VA has said, okay, we will accept this as your stressor. You don't have to tell us about it in great detail to have that initial stressor. If you had the Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Silver Star, any type of insignia with a combat V for valor in combat, that's your stressor. If not, and I sort of hate this, but the VA will ask you to write out what happened, when it happened, where it happened, who was there. That's a tough thing, but
yes.
Some veterans just refuse to do that, and I understand them, and my heart goes out to them. Then the second thing is getting to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. We have a social worker at the clinic there in College Station. She is not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but she's the doorway to the VA's psychiatrist and psychologist. And then he's the one who makes the determination, the lexis between the two of them.
There might be a lot of veterans who have it and don't know that they have it. You told me an example the other day about the frog. Talk about that, about the frog in the water.
Yes, sir. And that's the analogy that I use, and it's sort of, some people would say it's cute, some would say it's lame. I think it
tells the story, though.
It is vivid. If I took a pot of water and put it on a stove and put a frog in it, and then turned the fire on the stove and just slowly moved it up, the water would start boiling and the frog would boil to death.
Yes.
However, if I took that same pot of water, I put it on the stove and started the water boiling and then threw the frog in, well, he's going to hop right back out. Well, it's very similar to our veterans who it escalates so slowly that they're inside the bubble and they don't realize that these things are happening. I have a list of symptoms of the PTSD. And when a veteran and his spouse come in, and I think that he might have it, and sometimes they come in, they don't even ask about it. But I look at their DD-214 and I say, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, I can tell that they were in combat. And just by talking to them, I might pick up on some signs. So I will, or symptoms I should say, and I will give him and her a copy of these symptoms. And I'll say, just go ahead and mark down the ones that you think apply to you. Well, the veteran will take his time and he'll see 1 or 2 or 3. The wife over there, on the other hand, she'll be marking 6 or 7 or 8 of them so fast. And he looks at her and, honey, I don't do that. Yeah, you do. You just don't realize it. And that's that thing.
You got about a minute. I want you to touch on, you talked about power of attorney and that service. Talk about that.
Yes, sir. A power of attorney gives us being whatever service-connected organization, the authority to check with the VA, to work on your claim, to answer any questions that you have, to look into your file. It is specific power of attorney. It is for and only for working with the VA on your behalf. We are a service, we being the Texas Veterans Commission, is a service-connected organization. There's a lot of service connection organizations that do it just like us, the Veterans of Foreign War, AMVETS, Disabled American Veterans. All of them can do the same thing that I do. The reason we do it best is because this is all we do.
Right.
7 days a week, well, 5 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. Monday through Friday, I'm at the VA outpatient clinic, 7:30 in the morning till 4:35 in the afternoon. A walk-in, you don't have to set an appointment. All they have to do is come in and sign up on my little clipboard and come see me.
That's what they do. There's probably people yelling at the TV saying, where are you? Let's tell them where you are. You're in College Station in the medical building, the big black medical building across the street from the Med on Rock Prairie, right?
Exactly right. We're in Suite 212, right across the street from the Med, in that black building that's black glass.
Right.
And if you notice, when you come up there, there is construction that is going on just to the east of that building. That is our new clinic. We are building a new and bigger clinic to have more doctors and nurses to serve our veterans.
Fantastic. It's great service what you do. Thank you again for your service at Desert Storm, and thank you for the service that you give to all veterans. Wish we had more time, but we're out of time, but I think we got it covered.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pat. From serving in the ground battles of Desert Storm to serving now behind a desk at the Texas Veterans Commission, it's Pat Patterson's passion to stand by veterans. We owe all our veterans a debt, and he wants to make sure that debt is paid. Thanks to Pat Patterson and all veterans for your service. And thanks to our underwriter, First National Bank. And be sure to read more stories of veterans by reading Brazos Valley Heroes each Sunday in the Eagle. For Pat Patterson, I'm Tom Turbeville. We'll see you next time on Veterans of the Valley.